Hello students and welcome to another safety video. My name is Chase Coop. I am a teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High, and today I'm going to introduce you to this tool here. Your teachers may call it a number of things. They may call it a chop saw, miter saw, maybe some other names as well. The long name for this is it's a dual compound sliding miter saw, which means that it can tilt both directions, dual, and it also can change a miter and a bevel. So it can go both directions for both miters, both bevels, and you can do them at the same time. Long, complex name. Probably you hear your teachers just say go over to the miter saw or the chop saw. What is this tool used for? Great question. Well, as I was mentioning, it has a few different purposes, but one of its primary purposes, the one you'll use it for most, is making a crosscut, which means you're going across the grain of the board. So usually your sticks are pretty long in nature, and you are going to be cutting it to length on this machine. So that's number one, and it, in its setup position at 0 degrees miter and 0 degrees bevel, will give you a perfectly square cut. Alright? The next thing you can do is adjust the miter. Okay? And I'll teach you how to do this later, but you can spin this thing left or right and get miter angles of any degree, up to 50 degrees this way, a little over 60 that way. But you'll primarily use it for 45-degree angles, which creates nice rectangles or squares, or maybe 22.5 or 30 to make hexagons or octagons. So those are options as well. So that is the miter that changes the way that it cuts on the face. Now you can also change the bevel, which causes the saw to tilt over, and it will still cut square unless you change the miter as well. It'll still cut square, but it will create a slope from one face to the other, making it longer at one face than at the side on the bottom. Okay? And similarly, you can create all sorts of different things. You can create rectangles, hexagons, octagons, or any other shape that has multiple angles to it. So there's 3 ways you can use this saw. Cross cuts, just cutting material square, cutting miter cuts, or cutting bevel cuts. And you can combine them. You can have a square cut that has a bevel, or you can have a miter cut that has a bevel, but you can't have a square and a miter cut. That doesn't really happen. So what are the important parts of the tool? Good question. Of course, there's knowing how to turn the tool on, and that happens right here. This is the trigger, but notice if I press it, nothing happens without having also pressed the safety on the top. So safety on the top, trigger here. Okay? So we've got our safety and our trigger. There's the table of the saw, which is where you're going to lay your material, and the fence of the saw, which is the vertical component right here. That is where your material is going to go to. So you're going to want to make sure your material is against the fence and the table. Fence, table. This saw is equipped with a clamp, and in high school, I don't know if they use it as much, but in the junior high we love this thing because it keeps your hands free and allows for it to hold the material for you. So I'm going to just set this up to make a basic cut. The clamp is used to hold your material so it doesn't move away. This right here, the plastic shield, that's a blade guard. If for some reason that is stuck and you just see the blade when you come to this machine, please check in with your teacher because that's a very important safety feature. You want to make sure you know about the blade guard. Then right here, this is where you're going to adjust your miter. Pressing down locks it. Pressing up and squeezing allows for you to pivot your miter gauge. Okay? And right here is your miter indicator, your angle indicator rather, and I'll take a close-up of that so you can see it. Back here, this handle, as you flip it up, that will unlock that is the bevel lock. So flipping it up unlocks it. And right here, this knob that you can't see too well, I'll get you a different angle on it in a moment. It has a handle that you can twist and causes the bevel to switch. Back here, that's your bevel gauge, and it will have a little indicator for what your bevel is, and it should be set at 0 for any crosscuts. Then you have a vacuum port as well. Right here, you want to make sure that your vacuum is plugged into the vacuum port. Right here. This turns on the laser, which allows for you to see the lines for which you will cut. So if I press that and then I move the saw, you'll see that now our laser has turned on. So those are the basic features. There are a few other ones that you can have your teacher explain to you that can lock the saw in place, that can change the depth and have a depth stop on it. And those are more advanced features that you'll learn as you go on. But for our basic safety video, these are the parts of the tool you'll want to know. Now that we know the basic parts of the tool and what it's used for, let's talk about how you get this thing set up. So the first thing is you want to make a measurement on your material so that you know where you want to cut. Alright? So that measurement can then be lined up with the laser. Once you get it lined up, you want to make sure there's nothing behind your piece against the fence that causes your piece to come off of the fence, either at one end or the other, because that will kick it out of square. You also want to make sure there's nothing underneath your piece on any part of the table, so it should be clear of all scraps. Alright? Then, if you need to double check your measurements, please do that. You want to clamp your material. Now, one thing about these particular saws, this clamp is awesome, it's a wonderful feature, but sometimes it gets a little soft, where if you just set it on there and you clamp it, it's not really going to hold it very well. Whereas, if you get it in place, you know you got your mark. If you squeeze this with one hand and then lower the clamp, it holds it much tighter. Alright? So that's just a little helpful tip. Now for the junior high, I ask students not to use this saw unless they're able to clamp it. If it's shorter than the clamp's reach is, there is an option to take a different type of clamp and clamp the material from here to the back of the fence. But if it gets too short, maybe check in with your teacher and they might be able to cut it for you in the junior high level. For high school, you guys can decide how you do that. So, of course, now that we've got it clamped there, I'm going to zoom in on my measurement and how I have it marked versus the laser. And I'm going to also put on my safety equipment. Alright? And those are all things you need to do before you start. Let's check out how I line up my cut. Okay. As you can see here, I'm going to zoom in a little more. There is my crow's foot right here. And an X here, which means this part's going away. Alright? So the blade is going to come through the middle of these two laser lines. And you can check that if you click the safety and the trigger halfway. You can bring your blade down and just see, is it going to hit my mark right where I want it? Okay. And if it doesn't, then you need to move it. If it does, then you're going to be okay. Mine, I do see that I need to move it a little bit more that way. Otherwise, it's going to make it too short. Now it's looking a lot better. Okay? That's without turning the saw on. Okay. Alright, now that I've got it all set up in the right place, best practice during use. For junior high, I require that both hands are on top. You can use one hand to do the safety and one hand to do the trigger, whatever you want, but as long as both hands are on top of the saw, then your hands can't get underneath the blade. Okay? And if you have this clamped, it should be fine 99% of the time. Make sure you're wearing eye protection and ear protection. So, clamp. You can lower it, check it again. Alright? And now, when you do this, you're not going to go as fast as you can. You're going to slowly lower the blade into the board, and then if you need to, you're going to push forward as well. If you have a really wide board, you start at the front of it, go down slowly, and then make your way through slowly. Alright? This is a small board, and all I will need to do is come down on it and make sure I go all the way. Then you can release the trigger and pull your material out. Okay? So here we go. Alright, now that the machine has stopped and the vacuum is off, I can actually talk to you. You can remove your scrap and put it in the scrap, or in the trash. This is a small scrap you don't need. If it's a big scrap, of course, put it in the scrap bin. Then, if you're the last person using this, no one's waiting, it'd be nice to turn off that laser so it's not just wasting a bunch of energy. And, yeah, and if you have a vacuum system that you have to turn on manually, make sure you turn the vacuum on before you use it and turn it off when you're done. Alright? Scraps are going away. I'm going to unclamp my piece and take it with me, right? So, now let's talk about things that should never be done. Alright? Never cut material that shows a gap either against the fence or against the table. Okay? That can cause it to be out of square or out of the incorrect bevel. Never have your hands too close to the blade. So in junior high, we're going to have our hands up here. It will never be close to the blade. Make sure you mind the warnings here on the saw that say don't have your hands this close for those who are in high school. Alright, then also just never cut material without something holding it. If you're in high school, you may be using hands to help support the material. In junior high, you're having the clamp supporting it. Okay, there should never be a time where your material is just sitting loose on the table. That will not end well. Important things to remember. Please push slowly and from the front to the back. Okay? That's just an important skill to know. Also, don't let go of the saw when you're finished, because this thing is spring-loaded, but if you let go of it, it'll just fly up, and over time, that's not really good for the saw. Make sure you're gentle with the tool. You'll let it come to a stop, and then slowly bring it back up. And also, don't try and cut material that's too short. That's just a danger for your fingers. So make sure that your material is sizable enough, and if it's not, either find a hand tool that can do the job, maybe a handsaw, or you might have a teacher help you or figure out another way that you can get that same cut. Thanks for watching, and be safe with the miter saw. We'll talk to you later.